let's turn then to the other big issue, which you claim in a way, some are claiming CAB is a distraction from the crisis of the economy.
It only distracts the government. It doesn't distract the people who are affected. The people who are affected are fully conscious that the economy is sinking and the CAB is only adding political oil to an economic fire.
Because today the finance minister has once again addressed the media and said again that the Congress is exaggerating the situation, that things are coming under control. Don't worry, the Congress is wrong when it says that we've lost control of the economy or that we are clueless.
I've read the statement. It is a string of irrelevancies. Today, food inflation touched 10%. Factory output shrunk 3.8%. Retail inflation has crossed 5%, beyond the Reserve Bank's range. And the third quarter will be below 5%, sub 5%. If 3 quarters are 4.5, and let's assume 5 again, the year will end with less than 5% growth. And this 5% growth, because of the change of methodology, as Arvind Subramaniam constantly reminds us, is equivalent to about 3 or 3.5% of the old methodology.
So A, you don't accept that it is cyclical as the government said?
Of course not.
You believe it's structural? And B, do you see us heading towards a state of stagflation as some are suggesting?
There are only 2 people who believe that it's cyclical. One is the finance minister and one is the chief economic advisor.
Chief, when it comes to these figures you're saying, you see, as finance minister, along with Morarji Desai, you have presented the maximum number of budgets. When it comes to these growth figures, you have been there. 2008, 2009, 3.9%, according to 2011-12 base, 3.1%, 13, 14, 5%, say with 11-12 figures, 6.4. Inflation was very high. But you are saying, do you see no green shoots here? Is that the point?
Don't compare year on year. What is happening in 2019-20 has no relevance to what happened in 2008-9. 2008-9 was the international meltdown. So don't compare that year's 3.8 or 3.9 with this. The whole world collapsed. 1,000 banks collapsed in America. Don't compare year and year. You have to compare what happened in that year with what happened in the earlier year.
But how do you, when the world is not growing at 8% today, how do you expect India to grow at 8?
I'm not saying that the world is growing at 8% and India is not growing. Despite the world not growing at 8%, you should take steps to grow at a higher rate. And there are ways to do it.
No, so you tell us the solutions to the 2 problems.
First solution, they must have the humility to admit they made serious mistakes. Demonetization was a serious mistake. The design of the GST was completely wrong, and the implementation of the GST was worse. They gave extraordinary powers, and those powers still remain, for the tax and the investigating agencies. And they have put fear in the minds of investors by indulging in retrospective taxation and retrospective demands of humongous sums of money from various people. Now, they must admit all these were mistakes. Let's assume they were genuine mistakes. After admitting they were mistakes, they must say, what is the diagnosis of the problem here? If the diagnosis says it is a demand problem, but there is no demand, there's no purchasing power, there's not enough money in the hands of people to buy goods and services, they must accept that our diagnosis was wrong. They must accept that that diagnosis, that is a cyclical, is wrong. Once they admit all these things, then we can lay out the prescription for what needs to be done.
What is that prescription? What would you do if you were Nirmala Sitharaman?
First, I'll resign.
You'll resign?
Yes.
You believe Nirmala Sitharaman should resign?
No, I will resign because her assessment is completely wrong. If my assessment was so wrong, I would resign.
Today they've said very clearly that there's still this move that they're going to increase GST is unfounded. They haven't taken any decision to this effect. And
what will they do?
And reducing personal income tax is also not yet firmly on the agenda.
They've got a huge deficit today. They raided the RBI treasury, took 1,75,000 crore rupees. Remember, they said this is going to meet the fiscal deficit and will take care of infrastructure. What did they do? They used 1.5 lakh crore to give a bonanza to 800 corporates. We have calculated it. It's exactly 800 and odd companies which are benefiting from the corporate tax rate cut. So 1.5 lakh crore went to 800 pockets. Now again they're left with the old fiscal deficit. They have to raise money. All right, they may not cut personal income tax. They have to raise some tax. Which tax are they going to raise? If they raise GST, it will depress the demand you're talking about further. People will buy less, no? For the first time, non-durable, fast-mover consumer goods is declining. First time. Very rarely it happens.
Would you cut personal income tax?
Of course not. This is not the time to cut personal income tax. And this is from a person who cut personal income tax radically in 1997. I believe personal income tax should be cut, but this is not the time to do it. You do it in fair weather. You don't do it now.
Chief, seem to be agreeing with Arun Jaitley, who said that indirect taxes are regressive, direct taxes are progressive.
But
you know, there is a problem. When you say GST was hastily implemented, you started talking about GST. You started talking about GST in 2006. The first empowered committee was formed in 2009, 2011. The first time the amendment was moved, it lapsed. Now, something which moved in 2006 as one of the bigger reforms which you yourself wanted, in 2017, July 1st, you are saying was in a hurry.
I didn't say it's
in a body which is federal in character. You have all the chief finance ministers in it.
Understand. The GST Constitution Amendment Bill was not drafted by the GST Council. The GST Act was not drafted by the GST Council. GST Council is a product of the Act. This was drafted by the Government of India. Mercifully, they invited the Congress party to one meeting. And I said, show us the draft and take our inputs on the draft. They refused to show us the draft. The draft was only unveiled on the floor of the House. Then I said, show us the rates. They refused to share the rates with us. When the bill was unveiled, they said rates will be fixed later.
But let's look at the two issues which you said make me qualified to be the finance minister. You said demand.
At least your diagnosis is right.
My diagnosis is right. One is demand and the other is the credit squeeze. The government says they are addressing the issue of credit squeeze. They are addressing the issue of NBFCs. They are addressing the issue of the banking crisis.
What are they addressing?
They are pumping monies into banks which have been struggling otherwise and providing credit to industry. So they are claiming we are fixing the problem. We now understand the problem.
They've been doing this for the last 12 months.
So you don't go along with this view that we are now, the government believes we are now fixing the problem. The worst is over. By April, May, things will be better again.
I've heard this worst is over for the last 8 months. They have to induct talent into the government. What did they do? They banished the talent that was available in the government. They had Dr. Arvind Panagriya. They had Dr. Raghuram Rajan. They had Dr. Arvind Subramaniam. They had Dr. Urjit Patel. They got rid of them one by one.
What would you do that is dramatically different to this government? Apart from, of course, as you said, first admitting that there is a problem.
And all that. I've said so. I said, I will address the demand side.
Yes.
Make sure there's more expenditure which puts money in the hands of the poor people, the bottom 20-25%.
Right.
Which means Maganrega, rural wages, agricultural wages, daily labor, industries related to daily labor, construction. Those are the focus areas so that people have more money. That's the first thing to address. The second thing to address is to boost the confidence of the Indian investor. Today, he's not going to invest. You give him another corporate tax cut, he will deleverage himself first. He will pay himself more dividends. And if he's still got some money left, he'll buy a yacht. And then he might put in some machinery. Nobody is going to invest. Your power capacity today, your thermal power plants are working at 49% plant load factor. What does that mean? 51% of all installed thermal power capacity is idle. There's no buyer for electricity. Why would anybody produce electricity, although we've got coal reserves and for another 200 years? Therefore, you have to put confidence in the investor. All right, I'm addressing the demand side. Don't worry, demand will pick up. Demand is picking up. You see, cars are selling, scooters are selling, FMCG goods are selling. There's more money in the hands of Maganrega labor. There's more money in the hands of rural agricultural labor. Now, please produce more.